And just to confirm, this is the finance meeting, correct? I'm not trying to usurp John from leading another meeting. Yeah, this one is mine. Okay.
Yes.
I, I am gun shy now about all of these. I'm not gonna lie. So call to order here. Robin, if you could help us with just people here, and if everybody could just say aye
Okay, I'll just go down my list. Matt Montgomery,
here.
John Daughtery,
Here.
Ethan Linville,
Here.
Dolly Harlan,
Present.
Tiffany Reeves,
Here.
Kevin Moore,
Here.
Rolly Thacker,
Here.
Jeremy Hurd,
Here.
Stacy May.
Here.
Colin Mosley,
Here.
Hannah Gregory,
Here.
Rachel Adams,
Here.
Jennifer Hayes,
Here.
Todd Blanton,
Here.
Michael Bushman,
Here.
David Detlinger.
Here.
Is there anyone else online that I didn't get? All right, good.
All right. No, thank you. Let's Michael, I know you've got to go. Let's jump right in then to the budget.
Sure. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So starting off at the top here, based on our allocations, we estimated our carryover to have 1.6 million going into this next fiscal year from our current funding streams. So overall, our current, with our estimated allocations, these were given to us by ELC March 27th this year. So again, we have not actually received these, but these are estimations given out. So our total budget for FY26, we're estimating to be 4.6 million.
And when will you hear just
Yes.
more nervousness this year because of the new administration than probably any other year? When will you get, I mean, I love that it came from somebody else. This is what they think they're going to give you, but when will you hear final that this is good?
So the actual estimation or the NFAs that they send out, it just comes whenever they get it from the federal level. So the youth funding technically starts April 1st, but sometimes we don't get that a couple months after. And that's not unusual, even in times of uncertainty like this. So our first round of allocations for dislocated worker and adult are July 1st. Usually, historically we kind of see it, the NFAs come in maybe mid-June, late June. But we've actually had years where it came in a little bit after July, but we had the contract with them signed before. So I know that doesn't make anyone feel better, but it really does range when they get the funding. They will obviously they have to do their allocations and splits between the ads and area workforce developments, and then they send it out. So
my hope was just as you talk about that is like, do we need to be cautious in that July, August allocation or June, July, August? Because, if it's significantly less than what we anticipated, we don't want to be in a deficit.
Right. So they do have rules where they can't go less than 80% of prior funding. So we do have caps like that to where that kind of protects us a little bit. So worst case scenario, we would have maybe 8% of what our allocations were last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we might have a lean end of year, but you aren't worried that we'll at that 80% level, at least there's some stability there.
Correct. Yeah, and we
okay.
have some things which I'll touch on a little bit, to kind of as little safety nets if we need to move some funds or tighten up a little bit. But yes, that's a great question.
Thank you.
So our first expense line I would like to point attention to is our staff. So the operating cost, as a reminder, this is just the ad here. So operating costs is all Bluegrass ad expenses. Our budget did go up. Our staff currently, with all the performance evaluations, the new benefits, which we did get new benefits manager and BIM group. We did a 2% raise for our insurance costs. And then what we're estimating after getting all the performance evaluations from all the department heads, basically this averages out to about a 5% salary increase. Obviously, they differ based on the performance, but averaging out for the ad as a whole, this 819,000 does include a 5% increase for salaries. And then that basically these salaries are, so we have staff like Hannah, Rolly, and so on. Basically, their time is split across the dislocated worker and youth. If we have someone that we know is going to be mainly in dislocated worker, we allocate more time there. And then obviously this admin section here, that's Colin's portion of time since he's split between admin, our department admin and workforce. And then all of Tiff's time and Robin's time goes to this admin portion here. But overall, that's why there's that variance of close to 200,000 between last year's budget and this year.
And that's been relatively flat for several years too, hasn't it? So that's not that's not something we're doing every year. It feels like that's been flat for a while.
The staff cost as a whole, or
yeah,
yes, yeah.
I mean, we had the problem where we didn't have a director, then we had a director. I mean, so I know it's been all over the place. Where that's probably not a fair assumption jump because we haven't had the full years for things, but I think that just like salary increase and everything have been relatively flat. So
correct. And last year, that's a good point. Last year in the FY25 budget, we only had 6 months budgeted for a assistant director position. That was the plan going into FY25, is that we were going to have an assistant workforce director. So we budgeted that for maybe 6 months of the year, but we ended up just not even doing that. So that's another reason for that decreased cost, like you said, Matt.
Yeah, so with 6 months of somebody, that's much less of a 150K delta than it would have been, right? I mean, so like yeah, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So moving forward, one thing I want to touch on, just share with you all, historically our allocation method, we based it on the number of enrollments per program. So, historically about 45% of our enrollments were an adult, 7% desiccated worker, and so on. And so if we had something that covered a cost that covered all programs was for the workforce program as a whole, we'd split it with that allocation method. We kind of discussed internally, moving forward for FY26, we are going to do it based on our funding streams. So, right now, based on our allocations, about 37% of our funding is adult, 31% is dislocated worker, and 32% is youth. So if we have something, an expense of any kind that is split across all programs, that will be the allocation moving forward. So we think that's going to kind of help spin down both our dislocated worker and adult like evenly. We won't hopefully have as many as large of a transfer balance, because we only had 7% of our enrollments in dislocated worker, and we always got this huge pot. So we always had this huge transfer year after year. We kind of checked again internally. We checked with Rachel to make sure that's allowable, and it does seem like we can do that. So I think moving forward, that'll be hopefully help spend our pots of money more evenly. So that's what this distribution is moving down. So after staff, we split that based on what they're going to spend their time on program-wise, but staff travel and downward really is kind of based off of this new allocation method. And I just want to kind of share that with you all. Staff travel, we don't expect a lot of our staff to travel as much. They're going to the career centers, so they will be out there by default. So we decrease our travel expense for Bluegrass Ad staff. The supplies, postage fees, all that kind of remained pretty similar. We basically bumped it up a little bit just based on the current trends of our expenses going up. So that bumped up to 39,000. The biggest change probably in here, other than staff, is the phone equipment and computer software. This computer software line, this includes our transfer VR headsets, the new Premiere Virtual licensing fees, and Kentucky and Works Launchpad licenses. So that's what the biggest reason for this increase in this line item. We budgeted last year for only 53,000, but we're estimating we're going to end this line item for FY25 around 70,000. So again, this is just current trends of the increases in prices, especially in the calendar year 2025. So we just kind of bumped it up to 95,000.
And some of that's hardware that doesn't need to be bought every year, but you're saying some of the licensing fees are higher. Is that?
Yes. So they bumped up some of the. So really, the transfer VR headset, it's almost like a rental fee that we kind of have.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and some of those prices bumped up on not only the equipment but also the software itself to run those headsets. So
My favorite line's your next line though.
yes,
So
yes.
like having John has been being around for a while. That one just makes me happy.
Oh yeah, yeah. We don't anticipate, and we haven't budgeted the last 2 years now any legal fees, so that's exciting. Our next line was the Bluegrass WIB Leo support. So this is any conference travel that we have for any board members. We did bump it up to 14,000. Based again, looking at the averages of the set of costs, we did average out for about 2 to 3 board members to travel in both the fall and the spring. So that 14,000 is to hopefully have some, which we've had great attendance, but for that those board members to travel. Professional development, we kept that at 25,000. We initially had a large conference budget for last year. We didn't reach that. We're estimating FY25 to end about 16,000 just for transparency. We do think that both Rachel and Tiffany plan to go to NOB in DC, which is a great conference. We didn't do that. So that's why that budget is remaining at 25,000. That also does include 2 to 3 staff members, again, for both the fall and spring set of conferences. Indirect, that's tied directly to our staff costs, really. So we do have a current year Bluegrass ad budget. 45% of our indirect costs is the budgeted amount. But this is basically what we've budgeted in our current Bluegrass ad indirect costs shared based on the expenses. So that's just kind of all tied together. So that's the small increase there. Career centers. This is one that it's kind of an unknown, and this is kind of the line items that I kind of created a buffer in. So obviously we kind of cover all the career center costs for Lexington, Richmond. So that means, the not only the rent, but we have the utilities, internet, things like that. We did have a new IFA, which obviously we worked with the state with. So we kind of have some unknowns here. So I know we're supposed to review quarterly about, the shared costs. So there could be portions, in Danville that they're paying for janitorial services or internet that we're sharing, things like that, shared spaces. It's still kind of up in the air, and Tiff can kind of, fill in any more that I'm missing or Todd. But really, that the plan is we're supposed to meet quarterly and review our expenses between all partners as each career center. We don't think any money is going to actually trade hands. We still think it's kind of a requirement that's passed down to the state to have this IFA budget. So we don't actually think money is going to pass hands, but I do have this buffer here in case there is some expenses and costs associated with this review. This year for the FY25, we're ending about 180,000. So this 320, again, that's kind of buffering for the increased utility costs, maybe if there's any rent that might slightly go up, but also for any shared costs that may be a requirement. Let's say that the state comes back and says that we need to pay these out. That 320,000 is there for that. And again, this career center.
What happens if you don't need that money? I mean, like at the end of it, can it flow down into the program delivery?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So that's kind of our buffer line. I like to bump that one up in case we, let's say the board looks at this budget and for some reason we go way over on our Leo support or things like that. We can use that line item to move it up to any other line item that we wish, or we can move it down to program delivery costs and give it to Equus as pass-through. So yes, that is one of my favorite lines, is to kind of to bump up just in case we do need to shift some money around.
Yeah, Michael, I'll just jump in real quick. I think if anything, once this IFA starts, we may actually see some money coming back to us that we didn't anticipate. For instance, there in Lexington, the state has been paying us rent and rent only. So when we start looking at this IFA and have all the cards on the table, we'll probably start getting some actual funds from them. So there will be a little money changing hands for space and things and utilities that are definitely used. So if anything, that may change that line to increase some.
Right. And then finally, we did just slightly decrease our job fair and assessments. That's the, is it Anexa or Connect? I can never remember the name of the software that we use for the employer assessments. But basically our job fair, and job fair is really just any promotional items. If we have like brochures, or sometimes we've done coloring books for kids at the job fairs, that's all that line item is, and that's just a very slight change there. So again, for our Bluegrass ad staff, really we just had that increase mainly, like you said, Matt, due to the salary, which isn't quite a fair assessment based on, decreased values of the last fiscal year, but we did increase our Bluegrass ad portion of the budget to 1.6 million this year. And then the next two are the Equus. This is our pass through. I'll start actually with the one-stop operator. So last year we had a budget of 97,000. I went ahead, because we did a 5% average increase in salary, went ahead and just bumped that up as well, just for planning sake, for 5%. Again, these are not, this is not Equus provided numbers. This is, again, a guess, essentially. This is an estimate based on last year. So last year our budget for the program delivery was 1.7. I just went ahead and bumped up to 1.8, which gives us a $1 million carryover, and we have enough carryover in each funding stream. So that was what we currently gave to Equus. Now I'll look at the Equus budget in just a minute, but what all I did was, again, I just bumped up the total budget to 1.8 million, and I split the columns based on adult, educated worker, and youth, based on a new allocation method. So again, the 37% for adult, 31 in dislocated worker, and 32 for youth. So again, the program delivery, one-stop operator, these are just estimates that we gave to Equus. Final footnotes on the actual WIOA budget. These are the straight pass-through programs. We have the Quest. This was 200,000 last year. It's a 2-year grant. Or sorry, it was a 3-year grant. We started with 200,000, and I just basically decrease it to the carryover for FY going into FY26. That goes for Quest, Trade, and the Putting Young People to Work, the youth grant that is funded through Kentuckiana Works. It was a 2-year grant, and we split it 2 years. So this is actually higher than last year's budget. We had a lot of rollover from the prior year, so we just bumped this up for FY26 to a little over 1 million. Are there any questions or corrections or anything you would like to change on the Bluegrass ad budget, or any footnotes?
Yeah, I guess Equus team, any concerns with what's been shared on for your part?
No, there's no issues, and we're working on our contract budget today as well. So everything looks good on our end.
Awesome. And this is what we provided to Jennifer Tuesday, I believe, after we got our final numbers, after insurance and all that, when we finalized the WIOA budget. This is what we turned over to Jennifer at Equus for their numbers.
Yeah, I mean, and the balances look good. Like you read the news, right? Like the tariffs are now illegal, like
Yeah.
for all this stuff, and you're just like, what? Like it's such a whiplash on all this kind of thing. But this looks reasonable based on what we know, I guess.
And kind of we always say we like to split our budget, if we can, by half. We always kind of spend a little bit more in the first year of this 2-year grant cycle. So the $1 million carryover is definitely, I think it's a good number. It's a safe number to keep year after year for the next operating. Like you said, Matt, sometimes in July, we may not have our allocations yet. So we do want to have that carryover to operate without any delays or changes in enrollments. All right.
Matt, I'll have to lean on you.
Oh no, yeah, all good. Yeah, Ethan always has something insightful to say. Ethan, you want to jump in?
You guys are in much better shape than I am in DoD right now. I'll say that. The legislation was reapproved, so I don't think there's gonna be any issues there. Michael hit it spot on. They can't cut you any more than 80% of the previous year, and I would say your 320 buffer is probably going to cover a lot of that anyway. So I think what you did was smart, splitting by percentages and the programs. I've gone to a similar model over here based on square footage and who's sharing what. But yeah, no, you guys are doing good. I've got a couple multi-million projects up in the air. So, so congrats.
And just for clarification, it's actually 90% of hold harmless, right, Rachel?
So they told us at the last training.
Even better.
90%.
That's correct. That is correct. The
Right.
Teagle states
there you
it's
go.
90% hold harmless. So when they send out those planning numbers, they can't send you anything less than 90% of what you got for the average of the last 2 years.
Even better.
To the better.
Mhm.
So it's not a,
It's not-
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So any other discussion here, any other concerns anybody wants to raise or,
I don't have anything. If everybody's in agreement, I'll make a motion to approve.
thank you. Is there a second to approve?
I'll second that, Stalling.
Thank you, Dolly. All in favor? Great. And this passes. Thank you, Michael. I know you've got to run. Next on the agenda was, I was trying to scroll Michael's screen. That's not as helpful. Next to the agenda was the minutes from last time. If everybody's had a chance to look at those from the February meeting.
Make the motion to approve.
Thank you, John. Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor? Okay, minutes are approved. And then next, Colin, my favorite guy to ask questions of here for the finance reports for March and April.
Just to be clear, does your all say April or is it?
Sorry, that's my bad. It is only April because we approved the March ones and I meant to
Oh,
take that
okay.
off.
Sorry,
So,
yeah.
Yeah,
I forgot to update it.
you just got April today. So at the close of business on the end of, at the end of April, we were at 69% expended on our overall budget. That was 65% in the prior year. Our admin costs were 79% compared to 93% in the prior year. Our adult expenditures were 78% compared to 43% in the prior year. Dissipated worker was 50% compared to 51% prior year. Our youth funding was 65% expended compared to 63% in the prior year. And we had across our 20% special on work experience, it's like 225 or something like that. And then our current DSP invoices, we are paid up as of the end of March. And now we are working on the drawdown for April right now. And so if you want to look at the detail on how March worked out, that is there for your information. Equus was paid on the 14th of May.
Yeah, so I mean, as I just do the quick math, right, through April takes us 5 or 10/12 of the year, right? So 83% is sort of that baseline. So it looks like you're relatively under, like, you know, if all months were equal. So that feels pretty good. Yeah, and so for the March Equus piece, you know, I think that piece looks pretty good. The piece that I still kind of don't understand this, and I think we talked about this last time, was to try to say if anything was more than a week that we would add that as a bullet. So just that jump between the Equus invoice being received on the 12th, or, you know, getting some corrections in place on the 13th, the 2 weeks, you know, between that and the drawdown created. Would just like to see, you know, just a little bit more detail just as to what that is, because that's
Okay. Yeah, well, just to be clear, so our April Equus invoice received on the 12th. Books were closed and grant reports were sent out on the 16th, and then I have to submit reports to Works in the state system by the 20th. So by the time I've got all that done, it's just a matter, that's after I get all that done, that's when the drawdown starts happening. And last week was we've got a holiday coming up this week, but we had this week, but just basically it's just how it worked out. I mean, I could have started on a couple of days earlier, but I had other things I was working on and I just didn't.
all good, but I just think that's helpful to kind of throw out there that the state is this or that, so the drawdowns created. Just I'm not concerned that we're paying within 45 days, right? So that was the sort of my baseline for feeling good about it, but just we had said that anything longer than a week we would try to document there. So just help me out with that. But yeah, I'll let you keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, and just to that point, I did add on there, from the last time we had discussed. So I don't think I had been adding the, drawdown receipt from the state. It was like a date they notified us. So like the date they notified us of the expenditure would have been like 5/10, and then we finally received on the 12th. So I changed that. So it's the state approved drawdown on the 7th. And then we received the money actually on the 12th. So, that's additional bullet point for you. And then we paid it. It was officially, approved through, EFT on the 14th. So,
Yeah. But 23 days is not unreasonable, right? I mean, I feel like that's pretty good. I mean, I can't see everybody on the screen, but I think, Jennifer, right? I mean, she's not getting, her company's not getting worried, right? I mean, I think that's all really good. I just, just the detail helps explain, because I expect that you're going to get the drawdown created. I mean, from the 12th, you're going to get that within a couple of weeks, right? So, again, we're going to be at like 20 to 30 days of payment. That feels reasonable.
Yeah. Yes, sir. So, at that, I'll just direct you to the next page. You can just see on our FY25 budget down there at the bottom. These are where we're currently at on our non-WIOA youth funds, NEG Quest, and the trade, down there at the very bottom of the page. There's all those funds. And then on the very last page is our current balances on our grants.
Any concerns with those grants or any of those other things? Anything you want to raise there?
Any concerns? No concerns. We did receive an email today just reminding us that we have to put in the work system, show that we were 80% obligated on our youth funds. That's just that by the end of June, that's required. They have to be obligated at 80%. We're probably going to be at like 75, 76% total spent, but our obligations, they've explained to us what that means. And when I addressed it with Michael this morning, he sent an email out to Tiff to just explain that they just want to know, like, what's your estimated, upcoming, just to show on their end that those funds are not just sitting there with nothing to do. They have a purpose. So, we're not going to have any issues with that. It's just a matter of getting that report out there. As far as this remaining, youth in school, of 34,000, we are going to change that over to youth out of school. And I just finished that grant out, for May. And then, that'll get us into, out of all of our funds that expire June 30th will be fully expended by the end of this month. By the end of by the time that we draw down our April expenses, we're going to draw all youth out of school funds on this remaining amount, that was in that, old youth grant. So, we're not going to lose any money at the end of this year. It will all have been expended or obligated as it's supposed to be.
Okay. I mean, Tiff, maybe this is a question for you. I know at one point we were trying to get some more dedicated time for people to work on these grants or just be, just thinking about these grants. It seems to be going well. It seems like you're managing the grants well, but any like needs there for somebody more dedicated to grants?
Now that you mean about looking for grants, we've got Rachel.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry, I didn't. Yeah.
Rachel's wrote almost every grant that the workforce department had for the state. So I don't see that we would need another person.
Great. Yeah, it seems like it's flowing well. I know, my apologies, Rachel. I didn't understand the role. So,
No worries.
I've got kind of a question or maybe a request for future additional information. I'm gonna look at the non-formulated funds, non-formulated funds, which is the grant, yeah. And I see the numbers there, but basically I don't see much detail in other than the numbers there. Like when those numbers, when do they come in, when they leave, when we have to spend them, how, you know, where we're at on the spending on that.
Yeah.
I don't see any information about that.
Okay, so like, would you like me to show just, more of what, like we show on this?
Yeah,
Just how
so
that's
we
going
know
on?
what we're
Gotcha.
spending on those,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
So break down the staff and the WIC.
Well, just more important to me because these are like grants, right?
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Thinking, okay, there's a time frame in which those grants are live.
Yeah.
And where our percentage is on where we stand. That's more important about where we stand on the funds versus when they expire.
Sure. Yeah, those ones right there, those are not tracked in the same, like this right here, I just copy and paste from my master
Right,
worksheet
right,
that I keep. But I can just pull something together that would make it a lot easier to keep track.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious, I'm sure others, because I just see numbers, it's.
Yeah.
No detail there.
Yeah, we still have money in the pot.
Thank you.
all right. Any other questions or discussion?
No, I don't have any. Going back to that 80%, that's a federal thing. They want to start pulling funds back if they're not showing obligations. So don't get alarmed by them reaching out to ask you to do that. That's strictly a rule that they've got to follow at a higher level. I just wanted to throw that in. If no further discussion, I'll move to approve Colin's report with next time for John's ad of the life cycle for the grants.
I'll
Thank
second
you.
that.
Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, finance reports are approved. So now, Tiff, you're going to take us through work-based learning and ITA amounts.
Well, and listen, on this, it's not anything that we would vote on, right? It's
Okay.
just a discussion that I wanted to talk to the finance committee about. Bluegrass's ITA work-based learning amount is $10,000, right, per participant. We know that whenever everything with Oswald, which is a stronger workforce in America, and I think they've got a new name to it that they're playing with or something like that now. All throughout, at each point, an ITA funding amount limit has been 5,000, right? So when that passes, we know that that's gonna be the amount if it stays, and it stayed steady throughout. At no point has that amount changed from the beginning, whenever Virginia Fox started it, all throughout. So that got me curious as to what our amounts are compared to everyone else. And I started talking with Rachel, because I mean, she did come from the state on all of it. I reached out to all the other areas, right? And it really fluctuates. But in talking with Rachel, 10,000 is a lot. So it ranges from the Cumberlands. Their ITA amount is $1,750. Their work-based learning amount total maximum amount is 200. EK said, 2,000, I'm sorry.
We're not paying these people, how long are they working on that?
We were just saying, no, wait, John.
EK sets, their ITA, their work-based learning, the total amounts are 7,000, right, that they'll expend on an individual. South Central, it's 5,000. Kentuckiana is 5,000 for the ITA, 5,000 for the work-based learning, and heck, they don't even do OJTs. Now, West Kentucky does 15,000 over 3 years on their ITA, but on their work-based learning, it's 480 hours with a minimum of $14 or up to a maximum of 24. Lincoln Trail, they've had a little shakeup with their director. So right now they have an acting interim director, so I never did get anything back from Lincoln Trail, but, the last time Beth had told me, I think that theirs was somewhere around 3,000. Green River is kind of the same as West Kentucky. They do the 5,000 per year for up to 3 years, each year, for up to 3 years with the ITA. And at Green River, they just do a 500-hour cap on their work-based learning. Northern Kentucky is 5,000 for their ITA, and the work-based learning is a $7,000 max. Tenco is 6,000 for their ITAs per year for up to 2 years. So I just done a little, my generic math, right, of the average, and that averages out to $7,775, right? So do we want to stay with the 10,000 now, or do we want to look at adjusting that? And whatever you all discuss, that it'll either be on the agenda for the full WIB or it will not. I just felt like this is the place to actually discuss it, since it is about the numbers of it. Jennifer and I have talked. I think that she's on board with lowering the amount as well. Because Jennifer, how much I don't think we very seldom spend 10,000 on an individual.
No, Tiff, the average cost for an ITA is 5,000 roughly. And then the average cost for a WEX participant is a little bit more than that. But we all know that the employer should be able to identify earlier than 480 hours if they're going to retain that participant. So I'm 100% on board, just because I think that it's it gives us the option to serve more participants.
So if I understand the math correctly, that because we allocate $10,000, we kind of lock that in per participant, and even if we don't spend it, it kind of prevents us from spreading that across more participants. Because we have to wait until they're done to sort of sort of unlock those funds for that individual participant. So the ask would be, you aren't running into the barrier. I feel like, Stacy, correct me, I feel like we raised it to 10,000 like 5 or 6 years ago. I mean, like, I feel like there was some reason why we thought we needed to do it, but if reality, and we've learned things since that time that would make us lower it, that makes sense.
Well, we're doing less 2-year trainings.
Previously, because that's whenever I was the workforce manager then, and the push for it was because we had a bunch of initiatives that were with UK and higher tuition colleges, right? So when you look at, yes, UK is expensive, but also if you want to look at, you've got Kentuckiana Works, that's up, Kentuckiana Works up there, they've got U of L, Bellarmine and all that, and their max amount's 5,000.
Yeah.
So
well, that was the one I was listening for. That I figured that they're the most like us, maybe Northern Kentucky with Northern Kentucky University and access to all the other colleges there. But yeah, so it makes sense if that's the recommendation. I think we were running into a barrier a few years ago, so we wanted to raise it. And then if we're not, and we've got more flexibility now, then that makes sense.
I've dealt with this with multiple different regions and other states. What is offered is one of the things that we, prior to Ken Minke leaving, we were having state chair meetings. And that was one of the things I wanted to get rid of, was this barrier between this line in the sand. This group over here does this, and this group over here does this. Well, I got somebody that lives in Tenco that works in Bluegrass, and people live in Northern Kentucky that works. It's so crazy for an individual like me, an employer, to utilize the services of the different regions of career centers to actually attract new employees.
And here's the thing of it. It is out of a real law is set. I can live in Harrison County and say, I want to work in Robertson County. Right? I want my services there. It is the director's handshake and a politeness because everybody's trying to spend their funds. Right? And that's what it is. So like if someone, whenever we get a referral in and they are located up at Moorhead, right, in Rowan County, we connect them because we know that Justin and Denise and them have funds that they need to spend too. Now, if they say, no, we're not gonna fool with this person, we have enrolled individuals, but then on the flip side of it, when we do the year in review, you can bet the Leos are saying, okay, tell me why you spent money on somebody, money that's obligated to my counties,
Right.
to somebody that lives not in one of our counties.
Not seeing that friendly handshake happen on my.
It's,
We actually did have some EK-SEP, help out with some based training
yeah,
years ago, many years ago. And that's a one and done type thing, and I think they were happy. Kimco wouldn't play the game, but anyway,
I'm with you. I would prefer anybody to be able to come into any career center and get the exact same thing. That's the vision of WIOA, right? But then it's got real money in all the states and in all the local areas, not just in Kentucky, but across the nation. It gets real money real fast whenever I need to hit numbers, I need to spend money, and you do too.
well, I could, let me kind of broaden this conversation a little bit because of Tennessee's linkage I have. For the ITAs, Tennessee supports my training down there, which happens to start next week. But also they do the REX, and that is for beyond up to 12 months, or 12 weeks, 40 hours a week. Where it equals out $15 an hour. I'm not sure what that money equals. But also they pay training costs for that. It's cheap, not cheap. I mean, it's not like a university tuition or anything like that, but they pay that. And then through other grants and things that happen, which I think we're gonna go that route, with the apprenticeship, kind of push on this. They start paying, tuition reimbursements, which really kind of just reimbursement. And that could equal, let's say for a 2-year program, we're kind of basing this on, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere in the range of about $7,000.
Okay.
And then the IT, the work experience would be like, say, up to 12 weeks at $15 an hour. So we look at that as a group, we're up there, right?
Yeah.
And that's what Tennessee is.
I wonder if the governor gives more money to the local areas than Tennessee.
Well, I can tell you that Tennessee has, apprenticeship grants on top of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then I shouldn't say it that way, but I don't know that I will ever take hold.
Yeah.
In the state of Kentucky, because then the governor would have to pull out some of his money to go back.
We could talk for a while. But, I'm just throwing those numbers out there. It's
Yeah.
7,000 plus whatever, 15 times, whatever weeks, 12 weeks.
What was the average again? 7,000?
That's like.
$7,775. So, and look, if you all want to keep it as is, I'm good with that too. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it depends on.
Is it?
Heavily, we're talking about KCTC tuition, right, for 2 years.
Normally, yeah, they'll partner and two, they partner with us.
Right.
Like, a perfect example. I don't know that UK, if we said we need a CDO route in Estill County,
What CDL training costs me now?
between 48 and 5, right?
5,000?
Yeah, it's 45 to 5,000.
I think that's a good goalpost for us to look at, what CDL cost is, let's base it on that.
Okay. Just need to know if you all are good with it, then we will keep it on the agenda and I can push it for,
Now for work experience, I agree with the conversation. Jennifer and I've already had this conversation. We got this, 7 people starting Monday.
oh, and let me clarify too. I want to take with this, whenever we push it, if we push it, anyone that is currently in a WEC or an ITA, they are grandfathered.
No, I'm saying, I've already told Jennifer on a personal conversation. I don't need her for that 12
Right.
to be on that payroll. I'm gonna move, before that time period happens.
Yeah.
I know that, and I don't need the 12 weeks. Now, go back in time when Amy and I was talking about this a couple of years ago, we talked about, and Mike Riley and I talked about, it, and you were part of that conversation. I said, let's have some 2-week, 4-week, 6-week programs.
Mhm.
And instead of the 12-week.
Mhm.
I'm happy, for that WEX, I'm happy at 8. Now, I think 8 is more than satisfactory for everybody.
So for the WEX, at 160, I believe, we should be having those conversations with the employer to see if they're ready to pull them out.
Yeah.
So they don't have to sit up to the full 480 hours.
Right.
Now for OJT, the on-the-job training, where we're reimbursing the company, we're looking at a minimum of at least 6 weeks. As the conversation of, that's the earliest in the training period you can do with a maximum of 24 weeks.
Yeah. So I'll propose on this conversation, 8 weeks maximum WEX, and that's gonna save some money. As far as the tuition cost, I think 5,000, right? I think that covers the CDL.
Because listen, we can always put a clause in that if there's some kind of special initiative, special project that comes up, that we can present it to the executive committee or the full board, whichever meeting comes first, right? And then you all can decide. Let's say that UK comes, what was it that we get,
You got homology?
yes. Let's say that they come to us and say, if we want to do this, this is the cost, this is this, and it turns into be 9,000. We can put a clause in the policy that anything over the amounts that you all said has to be brought before the.
And approve it, a case by case.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
I would just fear that someone could possibly miss out. They would be linked to a date before we could approve it. Or should you just go ahead and put in the clause, approve up to this amount?
Well, nothing bad. If we have an organization that wants to come with us and it's gonna be more than the amount, especially like the UK ophthalmology thing, we can say, look, our next executive committee meeting is this. Or our full board, whichever, like I said, whichever one comes first. And they have to get that approval. We have got to take this to them, how it's all gonna play. And then you can start the project the next time, because whenever we worked with them before, they waited for us to make sure that we got everything squared away before they start.
Healthcare, what's the lead in for that? We haven't done that in 5 years.
I mean, it's, we need to do KCTC or ECTC.
We'll make sure we don't
Oh,
cut
really?
anybody out, but we did,
Instead of an RN.
I see no reason for the 12-week time period.
So John, you mentioned 8 weeks for the work-based
Yes.
learning. So just doing a quick math in my head, I believe that's 8 times 40 hours. If we try to base it on a full work week, we're looking at about 320 hours.
Right, and I've had some,
So you're wanting
I've
to-
had some programs with that, years ago, my district here.
So are you suggesting?
It was.
Yeah.
So are you suggesting we lower it from 480 hours to
That's 320.
320?
Okay.
And then we could even like, for me, I'm gonna take them out before that 320 happens, but we know we have that buffer as an employer. We know we have that buffer up to that time frame.
So, and the one thing too that I wanna, and I'm glad you brought it up, so, but we do have WEXs that are getting ready to start. Now, we had it set up the last 2 weeks of each quarter. There's no new ITAs, no new last 2 weeks because the TDSs and all of us has got a lot of data. We gotta make sure it's in the system the correct way. Cause it goes up just the way Key Sweet's made. You have to have everything in within 10 days to the end of the quarter, right? Those individuals that are currently in a work-based learning, I don't want us to go to the businesses and say, yeah, our policies changed.
No, those stay in.
Those are grandfathered and stay at the 10,000.
Right.
So we will have a list of those by the time we have the,
Yeah, well, it's gotta be approved by the board.
right,
So I think the thought here is 320 hours WEX, 5,000 ITA,
okay?
and that's our standard. But, up for discussion and waivers to that if needed for special programs.
Okay.
Do we have
Tiff,
a dollar?
Tiff, can I add something in there?
Yes, ma'am.
If we did just a standard $6,000 across the board, that would keep us safe in ITA and safe in WEX. So that would keep us pretty much safe to do the 320 hours at the average rate of $15 an hour, including the MMC markup. So 6,000 just to keep it clean would be my recommendation, but
For the WEX?
it's just
For everything together?
across the board to keep it clean.
I got you. I was thinking like using that CDL as the base, I was thinking there's WEX on top of that. But if there's no WEX on top, yeah. I think,
So that would be the cap limit for each individual,
Yeah.
is what she's saying. So basically, like, we can do a WEX for $15 an hour, $320, but depending on their salary, what they start out at, they may not be able to reach that 320 hours because their salary is so high. So what she's saying is bump it up to 6,000 so everything can be a profit.
yes. I'm fine with that.
So 6,000 IT, well, basically it's 6,000 per participant,
Yeah.
is what it would be. Okay,
However, that's divvied up with IT or WEX.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I don't think any board member or definitely Leah would have a problem with us cutting $4,000 out.
no, and I mean, and it does, it helps.
Yeah. So we can help more
Right,
rather than, because that's one thing Amy and I talked about. We can only help so many people because of that.
yeah. And then as far
Yeah,
as the.
the only negative thing, John, and I just want to ask the question, just to play devil's advocate, is there specific high tech type solutions like in the medical field or in IT that would require more than the average that we're going to lock ourselves out of?
That's.
When they do their internships and you get into, well, it's 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it's, I mean, I agree with you. You guys are closer to it. I just wanted to ask that question.
Yeah, I think this conversation, Matt, using the devil advocate, which you are, I think when Kim was chair, he was pushing hard for this high dollar amount back in the day. And he had reasons, but I was thinking, why do we need that much money? But
Yeah, but if the reality is, I mean, because we've now got years of experience here, if this is what the numbers are and this is what our average is, let's serve more people. I would vote with you on that. I just wanted to ask the question.
So Matt, with the 320 hours that John's proposing and also the $6,000 cap that Jennifer kind of proposed, what would happen with the work-based learning or the on-the-job training, those work-based programs, what would happen is it's gonna be which one hits first. It's either gonna be the $6,000 that hits first or the $320 that hits first. And so what will happen is if you have an individual who's making, say, $18 an hour, more than likely that $6,000 is gonna hit way before the 320 hours. So what that would do for us is that we would just have to have that conversation a little bit sooner with the employer and saying, hey, look,
Yeah,
we're gonna
okay.
have to pull this person out a little bit earlier. So instead of 8 weeks, it may end up being like 5 weeks. I don't know the math.
But it still benefits them, and that company probably has a higher sort of threshold for what they could accept. I mean, you're helping them with 5 weeks, which is still good. So no, again, I would support it.
I think there's a solution for both. I mean, I think we make it 6 for both, at the director's discretion to approve up to 10K with a requirement to report to the board. And then we kind of cover everything of what we've already been covering if there were some outliers. And then also, by and large, we're serving at the 6,000 amount.
I like that, Ethan. Yeah. So 6,000 as our standard and with the clause to allow
Up to 10,000.
up to 10,000.
That should take care of everything.
Yeah.
Should, yeah, it should.
And then whenever that happens, Tiff can just let us know, and then that informs us as to what programs are requiring that amount, and then there could be further discussion amongst the full board about that.
That takes any stranglehold off of that.
Sounds like a policy infused with common sense.
Yes.
Well done.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty good.
That was it.
Oh,
Okay.
Do you need a motion to forward that to the full board, or
Huh?
do you need a motion to make that recommendation to the full board, or?
Well, I don't know.
If we're just doing it as.
I was just doing it as discussion because like we'll
No,
have the policy.
I don't think that at this finance committee, we can approve that. So I don't think we need a motion now. I think the board will need to approve a policy change as a full board.
Well, I just meant the motion to recommend to the full board from the
Okay.
finance, committee, if you wanted that.
Yeah, it can't hurt. It
Can't hurt. Okay, is there a motion to?
If we're doing it that way, we have to have a motion first to add it to the agenda.
Well, then it's okay. I just didn't know if it was a stronger recommendation to the full board. I mean, John's didn't. I don't think it's a big
So
issue. I
we're
just didn't
gonna
know if
do
that
first
was.
do a motion
right-
to add it and then a motion to approve it.
You don't have to turn it into an official motion. You can just simply say that during the informational session, this came up and and this was the opinion of the finance committee. It doesn't have to be an official motion.
Perfect. Thanks, Stacy.
Stacy got us paranoid about everything. It's got to vote on everything. So now we're nervous, right?
No, you don't have to be
Okay.
paranoid. The line item for legal fees is $0 now, Tiff.
Okay, well, so yeah, so let's add it to the agenda. I think that feels good. And then, any other discussion I think we have as a group?
I had a question, and I'm sorry, this goes back to the budget. I looked at Tiffany and then I forgot to ask it. This is just clarification for me. Can somebody help me on the, under operating costs? Under that career center, we're currently at 100K. I understood that, but help me grasp it a little more. Anybody help with that, or? am I left off
You're
the page?
officially on the, are you looking at the FY25 budget there?
Mhm.
Okay, so never.
Yes. So what's going on right now is we're receiving payments back from the folks that are right over here,
CDO.
the CDO group, and that is being charged as revenues back against the career center. So right now that's showing as, obviously a lot cheaper. A lot less expensive, we've spent a lot less, but we're on track for the 320. And we've been factoring that in. Right now it's being charged as revenues to the 525 account, which is career center account. So right now that's showing a very low amount.
So now the questions you asking is about whenever Michael went through the back of the quarterly meetings that we're gonna.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So me and Michael both, we're waiting to roll the dice to see if money will actually come back to us or not. Right now, like I'll give an example as here, right? We hold the lease, the utility bills, we get all those and we pay all those. Now, CDO pays the janitorial contract. The way that the MOU and the IFA are set up is quarterly. Michael and Colin and me will meet with Kate Hoagland is CDO. They will say, Michael and Colin will say for July, August, and September, utilities, the Bluegrass ad paid $15,000 in utilities. CDO will say, we paid the contract on the janitorial service of $9,000. So then technically CDO owes their portion, their percentage portion, because I think it's what, are they 52% of the building? I would think they're 52% of the building.
Yeah, that's about
But
right.
they'll
This is 45, 47, something like that. The other's 50.
their portion of it. So that means, and that's why me and Michael both have, we're just waiting to see if we'll get paid because we'll come out to the good on it. right? But then you also have Danville Career Center that, and Todd, are you still on here? Correct me if I'm wrong. Danville holds the lease. The state holds the lease in Danville. So then they're gonna come to us and say, hey, our utility bills for Danville is this amount. You all, your rental space, I think is, how much space do we have? What's our percentage in Danville?
It's a little bit more split OBR's way than it's like 42 or something, I think, to. So we're the minority space holder in all the offices, just based on the amount square footage wise.
So that's. Figure that if it's too much money that CDO owes us an OBR, then we're not gonna, it's gonna be fake money as it's always been. But I think that if it works out with the utilities and things that they're paying the portion of, I think they want their portion. That's just me. That's my own personal opinion, not endorsed by anybody. Cause this is not the first time that the MOU and IFA has been going on. It's been going on since we owe it. They've just never really said, we want to make sure on this money amount. So that's, yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Tiff. I think the conversations that I had with Katie and with Dr. Gregory and Cora at OBR, all the partners that we have physically in our offices, they want actual costs to be split as they should be. I mean, right now, like you said, we're paying the utilities in Lexington. The state's paying utilities in Danville. They're paying janitorial. I mean, if there's a way, I mean, that these funds can be captured by whoever is actually owed them, the idea is that they would like to do that, but I think ultimately they don't really make that decision either. You know what I'm saying? Like, the idea is Katie would like to be able to pay their portion of the utilities, but she ultimately doesn't hold the checkbook. So I think when it comes to those reconciliations, it'll be a little tit for tat of, well, we paid this, you all paid that. Let's see what comes out in the wash. And it may end up being a small amount. You just never know.
But just because the way that real law is, whenever we do have those quarterly meetings, Todd will be there because he's a one-stop operator. He's basically the referee between all the partners, right? So we can make sure when those start that Todd includes anything in his monthly report, right? For whenever those quarterly meetings, he can make sure to give an update on everything. Okay. Mm-hmm. Did you hear that, Todd?
Back up on the 2% raise, he mentioned that he said a 2% raise to cover benefits. Is that truly how much benefits went up, or did they actually get a physical raise?
No, I think that benefits went up 2%, from what I understand. Now, that is definitely a bushel question.
Okay, so staff got a raise, or they got a 2% to cover benefits?
We're still working on that.
It was, his description was 2% for the benefits, and then there was a 3% across the board raise.
Yeah, I can help on that one. I'm sorry. Yeah, the 2% that Michael was referring to was the increase in our insurance costs for this next year. And then the other thing that he referred to was a 5% increase in staff costs for the raises that we hope to be able to give.
Huge. I got you.
And when we said across the board, does that include?
That's on average. So yeah, so we do, we're in the middle right now of doing performance evaluations, and we have a baseline amount that we like to be able to give if people meet expectations, a little bit more if someone exceeds or greatly exceeds. And then if someone has failed to meet expectations, there would be no increase in salary. We don't call it a cost of living adjustment because it's truly based on, we want it based on performance. And so that's the way the evaluations go.
Okay, so then you can't call it across the board because you're
that
basing
you can call
it on it.
You can call it an average, I guess, is probably what it would be, because there will be some that will be below and some people that will be above.
Okay.
there's also 5%.
Or career center staff?
No. So like, yeah,
On the program.
direct service
Cost.
provider costs.
Yeah. On the program, the cost.
The salaries are from two different, we're separated
Okay.
on those line items. Our staff, the staff is separated out.
That's all I have. Sorry. Thank you all.
All right, any other, I mean, great discussion. Any other discussion or open points?
Nope, I would make a move to adjourn.
Thank you, Ethan. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, John. All in favor? So thanks everybody for all the work that I know that goes into this. And have a great rest of your day.